Welcome to Golden Goal. Yes, the host has returned. The Premier League is back in majority, so yes, there's plenty of action to cover. Here we go. Let's kick off the show.
Fitting way to do so. Can it's him. Back to Balotelli. It runs for Aguero. They've done it.
Hazard still on the ground as Charlie Adam goes for goal here. Oh, and he scored.
And was by Stones. Andrew Townsend! A field of minutes. And Aaron Ramsey starts and ends. An immaculate. Trying to find a way through.
Well, yes, there we go. Here's the Premier League show. So, yes, after the death of Queen Elizabeth II, obviously we had no Premier League last weekend, but we have had games this week. So, this is what we are going to talk about. Let's get on with the panel first. In the producer's chair, we've got Matt. How's it going?
I'm good, thank you. How is everyone?
Yeah, all good, all good. Now I've gotten off trains back from work. It's the good old fun times of public transport. But back on the show after a while. Good to have you back, Johnny.
Yes, hello everyone. Hope you're all doing well.
Doing good. Have we got Nick?
Yes, you have, Hubert.
Yes,
Sorry
we do. Hey, you made it. Excellent. Everything's fallen into place after we started late. Fantastic. Right, let's get on with the Premier League action. And the first game we're going to jump straight into is Forest Fulham. So, Johnny, let's look at it this way. You've got Forest, who played the last two games. They've played the teams that have gone up with them, and lost both of them by exactly the same scoreline, I believe.
Yeah,
Are
well,
Forest going to struggle?
I think they definitely are this season. I mean, if you can't beat Fulham, who actually, to be fair, Fulham haven't been too bad defensively this season. But if you can't beat the teams who have come up around you, I think you're definitely going to struggle this year. But I think it's kind of difficult one to assess because they signed so many players. Getting a team to gel together quickly, I just don't think it just isn't going to happen. So perhaps the international break, if all their players don't go, it could provide them with a bit of an opportunity to make a more of a coherent unit.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with the international break. I mean, Fulham are definitely looking much better. I did have a bet with my friend for 30 quid that Fulham will go down, which I might come to regret come the end of the season, but we'll see what happens. I mean, Nick, when we talk about Forest, the main thing that we always gets mentioned, obviously, since they got promoted, is how many players they have bought. And so far, do you think, I mean, it's difficult to say because the players need to gel together and they've bought so many, but do you think that's going to be more of a hindrance, or is it actually going to help them?
It depends how you see it, because Forest did lose quite a number of players at the end of last season, with loans going back to the clubs. They had the parent clubs and players' contracts running out. So that's probably why they had to bring in so many. But I think 21 is a bit too much, because they need to gel, they need to play together quite a bit and be more settled squad. And I don't think they have that yet. They have been playing. There have been times when they've been playing and they just, I think against Bournemouth, they made errors. They made bad mistakes that cost them goals. I actually don't know for this game. I think Fulham have done better than I thought they would. I thought they would struggle, but I think they need to not rely too much on Mitrovic. They need to get goals from other areas of the team as well. But I'm hoping they will lose their next game because they're playing Newcastle at home. So obviously, I want my team to beat them.
Well, of course, yes. That doesn't surprise me. Matt, when it comes to Fulham, I mean, I wouldn't exactly call them a surprise package as such, but everyone, has had them to not do as well. But so far, they're proving people wrong, and it's carrying on.
Yeah, and this is what you would probably have said to Marco Silva when he was getting into that first couple of weeks of the transfer window. If you were to ask him what he'd want to do, he would say, we'd only want to lose games by the odd goal. We want to make sure that we're going the right way. And Fulham are a great example of being that tough, gritty team that if you're going to have to beat them, you're going to have to beat them really well and really convincingly. They're not going to give out points for free. Unlike some teams that have in the past when they've come up. And just fair play to Fulham to actually come up and have a good go. They haven't really spent a lot. They brought well. Not actually. I've changed that. They brought smartly, bringing in people with huge experience in the Premier League, let alone players that they were already relying on in Mitrovic. They're including so many great players in that side at the moment. They're going to be exciting to keep an eye on, that's for sure. I think if they do stay up, I have a feeling it might be like a couple of games to go. You'll be that close, but I think you'll be happy that they'll be there next season, because then you'd never know if season syndrome will come into effect.
No, I mean, the good thing about Fulham is if they stay up this season, at least they would have done better than the last few seasons they came up. And also, the big difference with me this time with Fulham is the fact that they've not gone and spent over 100 million on loads of players. They clearly learned from the past. They clearly learned that was a big mistake, because this time they've actually done a lot better. They bought smartly, like you said, rather than buying loads of players and hoping for the best. So definitely much better spending there from Fulham. Definitely learned from previous mistakes. Right, we'll move on to the next game then, and that is Wolves Man City. And Nick, with that game, I mean, you weren't going to expect much else after that challenge by Collins, which, I mean, Jack Grealish, I think he made a bit of a meal of it at the end of the day, but it was studs up. It was going to be a sending off at the end of the day. What did you think?
I think, wasn't a great start for Wolves conceding after 55 seconds to Man City.
That's not a good start.
And then the fact they scored again on 2 goals in the first 60 minutes didn't help them. But Wolves were dangerous when they had 11 players. Then they were getting into a good position. The last ball just wasn't good enough. And then I think once the red card happened, it was going to be inevitable. Man City were going to go on and win. I think Wolves made it tough for them, but in the end, Man City rode it out and won quite comfortably. But if it had been 11 against 11, I think Wolves could have got back into it. But we never know. But you can't do that. It starts with showing, and he kicked into Grealish. So, to be honest, it has to be a red card. But Man City had a tough game for periods, so it'll be quite interesting going forward to see. Because Man City have not had their own way so far this season. They've dropped quite a few points already this season.
Yes, I mean, Johnny, talking about Man City, I mean, they've been winning. They've won most games, sure, but they've certainly not had it that easy. I mean, Villa, a lot of people expected much better from City. They dropped points. Wolves, I mean, if not the sending off, you do wonder if the result would have been any different. Do you think Man City are, although managing, do you think they're struggling a bit more this season?
Possibly a little bit. I think perhaps in the Villa game, they may have been a little bit unlucky. I'm fairly certain the goal they conceded only had it was sort of a 0.1 or 0.2 expected to be a goal. So perhaps on another occasion, they could have come away with a win in that game. They drew to Newcastle, but we all know Newcastle are a vastly improved team, so perhaps that's not to be unexpected. And I suppose you also have to remember that they are playing a slightly different formation, and it takes a bit of time to adapt to it. And possibly at the back with their injuries, that definitely hasn't helped them. So I reckon, though, the title probably is between Arsenal and Man City now, unless other teams dramatically improve their form. So I don't think they'll really struggle, especially, but it's a bit more challenging than in previous years.
No, I can imagine though. City, Arsenal having the title row. It's early to talk about it, but let's just say when Arsenal face City, which has now been postponed, but it will be an interesting fixture when it does come. Matt, what did you think of the Man City Wolves game?
It was an interesting one because that's the first time that Wolves have been opened up like that. They've only lost games by the goal again. So that was nice. It was interesting to see how Wolves would react, and I know a couple of people would have thought, "Oh, Haaland's going to walk all over them," but in the end, he only ended up with a goal and an assist. So there was a way to keep Haaland quiet, but not as quiet as that. So, fair play to Man City. If I'm honest, I think they already know what they're doing. They know how to do it, and they're going to end up winning the league. I don't see anyone actually being suitable candidates to actually challenge them this season at all. They're just taking everything up an extra level, and it's just everyone else is it's a free for all in the brawl for four and the European spaces at the moment as well. So I think we're going to see an interesting team for City, especially if they have any injuries in the international break.
Yeah, I mean, the international break's always going to be an interesting one with it if injuries come, and obviously there'll be the World Cup, so I think that will certainly have an impact on big teams like that. So, yeah, it will be interesting. Next game I want to talk about, Nick, we're going back to you. I mean, it wasn't the most exciting game, Nick, for 3 p.m. Bournemouth, Newcastle, 1-1 draw, but yeah, I mean, what have you got to say on that game from a Newcastle perspective? Surely you would have preferred probably a win against the newly promoted Bournemouth.
To be honest, the last two home games have been disappointing results, and I think against Bournemouth it was a disappointing performance. They had Newcastle more on the ball, but the more clear-cut opportunities for Bournemouth came to Bournemouth. Yes, Newcastle had the post twice, and they forced the keeper in the safe, but they were fortunate to get a draw out of this game because they just weren't on it as in previous matches. And I think creatively they were struggling to create openings without Sir Maximin and Wilson. And after Bournemouth scored, we were fortunate to get the equalisers not long after with the penalty.
We seem to be having trouble with your line a bit, so we'll stop you there because your internet's cutting out a bit. Yeah, give it. We'll see if you can see. I don't know what's happening with your internet, but see. Hopefully, it will improve in a minute. But yeah, Johnny, when it comes to Bournemouth, I mean, was it based on? I mean, again, it's tricky, but I'll ask it anyway. Do you think they're right to sack Scott Parker after the last few games without him? They seem to have picked up a bit.
Well, I don't necessarily. It's hard to say if it was the right decision because the first game against Aston Villa, they won, and then pretty much they only played teams in the Villa who would finish in the near the very top of the table. So I don't necessarily think you can make a fair assessment of how he could have done in the Premier League. But I suppose you can also not deny that since they've sacked him, they have improved. But is it the fixtures that have made them improve, or is it a managerial bounce? It's kind of a very, very tricky question to answer.
Matt, what are your thoughts on the game and the Bournemouth situation?
It's a difficult one. Again, Newcastle, you would have thought they would have wanted to go and win it, and they tried. It just didn't happen for them. So for Bournemouth to come away with a point, I think they'll be happy with that. The whole Bournemouth situation, it is an awkward one because obviously they're trying to be sustainable. They want to try and be competitive as possible. So there obviously is some sort of limits over what they can and can't do in the transfer market. I think we've all basically said to them that they're going to be relegated. I think they know that in the truth as well. It's just a case of how they get relegated. Do they want to be a Derby County losing 4 or 5-0 each week, or are they going to give it a real go? And they're giving it a real go at the moment. I'm just trying to remember how many points they have at the moment. Go on the table. So they are.
I think they've got 8 points.
Yeah, they're on 8 points. So they're not going to go down as lightly as we originally thought, but I think a lot of people will see them as relegation candidates, and I think they'll finish like second from bottom in the end.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with Bournemouth with new management without Scott Barker. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that does much improvement. Next game then, Leicester Spurs. Now, Johnny, I mean, the Spurs blowing Leicester aside isn't really a surprise, but at least Son finally remembered how to score goals.
He did indeed. He's back. It's been a little while, hasn't it, since he's scored? I don't think he scored until this game, had he?
Yeah,
And he comes back with a bang, getting a hat-trick. But I don't necessarily know whether he's found his shooting boots or whether Leicester are just being Leicester now, aren't they? Terrible in defence. So it'd be interesting to see if Son keeps this form up in the next couple of Premier League games, because I think Spurs need him firing again, because Kane's been playing well and Richarlison and Kulu have, but it just adds the third dimension, really, doesn't it, to their attack?
Yes, and they've got a small matter of the North London derby coming up soon. Nick, I mean, Son, yeah, Tottenham, Son hat-trick, Tottenham will swipe Leicester aside, but it's Leicester are surely they're about to repeat what Frank de Boer did with Palace at this rate.
I think Leicester have. I think Leicester started well in this game, but then the old problems came back to haunt them. They just could not defend crosses and set pieces again. They leaked so many goals last season from set pieces, and it came back to bite them. And then defensively, they were just all over the place, and Tottenham took full advantage. So it's pretty hard to tell if Son's back to form. We'll have to wait and see for the next few matches whether it is the case. Obviously, they got Arsenal next away, but with the train strikes, that might be thrown into question that weekend.
Great. Another game postponed. Matt, question to you: will Brendan Rodgers be there in Leicester's next game?
I think it's one of the ones you'd have to turn around and say, look, it needs to change. I think they know it's a tough place to even begin talking about. There's talks that obviously they had FFP to comply with, so that's why they couldn't do a lot in the window. They ended up selling quite a lot of their players, some of them still wanting to go, hinting at Tielemans and some of the others that some of them are probably even thinking, I've been given a broken promise here. Look at Vestergaard, a really decent centre-back, and he just looks a shell of himself as what he was at Southampton. It's a real shame that he's not been able to be that player that he was, but I think at the moment it just means new manager, new project, go in the bin. And if you don't know my thoughts on Brendan Rodgers, I think he's a fake manager. He likes to copy what other previous managers have done and then just go from there. Look at his time at Celtic, you look at his time wherever he's been, he's just copied what the previous manager has done well and then just gone from there. and it's actually a surprise that he's managed to last this long with Leicester in to begin with, because I would have thought he would have been found out a lot quicker, and it's just a telling sign that I think Leicester just look really bad at the moment, and if they don't do anything soon, they could be looking at a relegation battle, which I don't think anyone would have thought at the beginning of the season.
I don't know. I've had some people put Leicester as a surprise relegation candidate, so me including. And at the moment, you can easily see.
Oh, we got a comment.
Hey,
We got a comment from Ray saying hello, evening to everyone.
who's commented? Sorry,
Ray. He said evening at the
Ray.
gents.
Evening, Ray. Evening, Ray. Nice to have you.
Good
Hope you
evening.
enjoy the rest. Hope you enjoy the show. We've got 2 more games to cover. The next one, Nick, Brentford, Arsenal, and Arsenal basically doing what they've been doing so far. Yes, they've had a little blip against United. Some people could argue there was some refereeing decisions there, but hey, we've been there, we've done that. We'll go to this game.
Quite a lot of teams this season have been skewed by referee and bar decisions. So, yay. But Arsenal bounced back really well from their defeat against Man United. Played really well. They had quite a. They could have won. They could have scored more. They could have won more handily, 5-6-0. They just didn't give Brentford much of a chance. They pressured Brentford, and when they won possession back, they attacked quite well and were quite dangerous with a lot of the ball and defended really well. Brentford didn't really have much of a chance in this match, and that's probably that was a really, really good performance from Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny, Brentford did. I've not watched the game because I was having a travel chaos all weekend, but Brentford didn't seem to have offered much in this game in general. Really, they seemed completely outplayed, but I don't know if that's an accurate reflection.
I think probably for this game, yes. I mean, I think if Arsenal get it right with their pressing game, they can suffocate teams to an extent. And if they can keep it up for a long periods of times, it can make it difficult for teams. And in Brentford's case, I mean, they're kind of one of those teams where you don't necessarily know which Brentford's going to turn up. Some weeks they seem to win quite comfortably, and other weeks they're struggling a little bit. So, but no, in this game they didn't offer too much.
Matt, what was your view on the game on Arsenal?
You asked the Arsenal fan who hates Brentford so much.
Yeah, your beloved bees.
Bees. There's only one bees in London. They play in the National League, as I say every time. It was always about trying to get those ghosts of last season out of the way. The way that the team lost last season, I'm not putting rules and things like that, but one of their goals should have been definitely ruled out last season because it was a foul on the keeper, and just other bits and pieces. Just they didn't turn up at the end of the day. It was just a classic Premier League script. You come up to a new team that's just been promoted, new stadium. It was just written in that they'll go and win the game. But this time around, Arsenal did what they did best, and that was scoring goals. And making sure that the team were done and dusted. Huge congratulations to the 15-year-old, I can't say his name for the life of me, who made his debut, but he's now the youngest player in Arsenal and Premier League history to make a debut. So, and a lot of people have also said there's a few more records that before he even hit 16, he'll be the first player he'll be able to do that. I think the current record for the moment is the youngest player to score a goal is held by James Vaughan, which is 16 years and 260 days, I think. So he's got until next September to basically go and break that record now. So if he wants to, or if he's able to, but a lot of people have said he's been a good player, and apparently he's already been scouted by everyone else. So, but the guy's 15. He's doing his GCSEs at the moment. Give him 5 minutes to at least sit down and do those exams before even contemplating that he's playing where he's going to be playing next season. But yeah, honestly, it was nice to put those guys to bed. And this season is about trying, instead of getting those games that we would lose, turn those losses into points and climbing up the table, so that we've got a little bit more of a little bit more of solidarity and challenging for that top four spaces at the moment. And Brentford, a little bit of banter at the end with the kickabout and the boys tweet, and everyone getting jealous about it, and this, that, and the other. I don't know what to say about that. It's just honest comeback, just to say, look, we're different to how we were last season, and leave it at that.
Well, it's an interesting one, but Arsenal march on. Both teams march on. Arsenal and Spurs and North London derby. Hopefully you'll go ahead so we can talk about it. That'll be good. Right. One more game to go, and that I can't work out what form both these teams are in. Everton and West Ham, I mean, they've been in terrible form, and they picked up points. Yeah, I mean, what would you say? But what would you say about that game? Everton beating West Ham 1-0. What do you think?
To be honest, I find Everton and West Ham very confusing teams, as you said. I suppose perhaps Everton, it shouldn't be so surprising. They've tightened up at the back. There's the signing of Cody and Tarkowski. Well, they're proven Premier League defenders, and they've been there and done it, haven't they? So that has helped. And Everton just seem to have a bit of a knack of scoring one goal at the moment. And West Ham, I don't know. I don't really know what's wrong with West Ham. They just don't seem to be able to score, do they? And in a few games, they've been a bit unlucky here and there. But they seem to be a shadow of the team they were last season. So it's an interesting quandary, these teams.
Nick, what do you think of the result? I mean, but like we said, both teams confusing, but both teams probably would have loved the 3 points, and it was Everton that in the end got them with the last minute striker they have purchased, which they very much needed.
Yeah, they definitely need a striker, because before they bought Morpay, they didn't have one. I think Everton took the performance from the Merseyside derby into this game with confidence, because the fact they've had Gizagay and Anana and Cody and Tarkowski at the back, those new players have come in and settled and played and helped the team, and that's why the performances have improved the last couple of matches for Everton, and that's probably why they got the win. West Ham, they played one European games and won, but Premier League their form's been quite patchy, and I'm not sure if it's the European games that's affecting them or the players they brought in not clicking. I don't know what it is, but West Ham have done well the last couple of seasons and been challenging, but they just need things to gel and come together, and then they'll probably will get the form from last season back. But they need to do it as soon as possible, I think.
Matt, do you think it'll be a case this season of West Ham having to sacrifice Premier League or the Conference League? Do you think they'll have to sacrifice one for the other?
After everything that happened in the Europa League, you thought they were going to go out into the final, or at least give it a good go. Unfortunately, it just didn't happen. So I think Moyes has got his eyes on the prize. He's never lifted a European trophy to begin with, let alone been in the final, it'll be something that I think will be huge. I actually think it will be bigger than his project with Everton. The fact that he got so close with Everton a couple of times and just it never happened. The fact that he could do that with West Ham would be huge, and I think we're going to see. Obviously, he's going to have to pick one or the other, not both. At the moment, I have a feeling that he's going to sacrifice the League Cup when they eventually play in that. It will be interesting to see what team he puts out for that game, to be honest. But I would expect it to be a fully rotated squad, and you just whoever plays, it might end up being some of the youth academy players as well as some of the players not getting minutes or some of the players getting back from injury. There are players there that blow your socks off. Jarrod Bowen last season, he was amazing. Or comes into this season, he just struggling here and there. He scores goals 1 minute, the next minute he's just doesn't look a shell of himself. So it's a bit odd at the moment for West Ham. But I think, I think he's going to pick Conference League because he knows that's more of a winnable target. I think the main point for them is to make sure they go through. I think they're going to win that group to begin with, and then once that's done with, they can look back a little bit. They're going to have a little bit of a break for at least 2 months, and then they can focus on trying to get up the table a little bit more, see if they can go from there. But to be fair, Everton have done something a bit different this time. They've tried to be more defensive and then try and get those goals whenever they can. Neil Maupay, again, not everyone's cup of tea, but it does guarantee you at least 10 goals. And that's what the important thing is for Everton at the moment, is to get those goals and go from there. It'll be interesting to see what happens should Calvert-Lewin return, because I would imagine that will be a different style that will be implemented. But then again, hopefully he isn't getting injured every 2 minutes when he comes back from training, because the way he got injured again, I've said this story so many times. He was doing rondos, he went to pass the ball, and then he's just collapsed onto the floor. So it's just one of those things they need to be aware of and keep an eye on it, because I think England are missing a decent striker at the moment as well. And fair play that Tammy Abraham's in there, and you got others as well that's sniffing around, but they're not doing what they could be doing. You got Lee Watkins at Aston Villa as well, who's not really becoming alive in that final third. So if there is that option, that there are other players out there that can get that job and be on that plane in come November. But just for this game, hopefully we'll see the best of both teams, to be honest, because it might just end up being one of both those teams where West Ham got a come back home in the reverse fixture and win that 1-0 as well, and it might be a Jarrod Bowen goal.
Well, there we go. We'll have to wait and see what happens with both teams and who they and with the next games. It's an interesting season. It's going to be an interesting one so far. But yeah, there would have been a few more games for us to probably get our teeth into, but unfortunately, Manchester United, Leeds, and Chelsea and Liverpool have been postponed. So we will get to them at some stage, I'm sure. But that for this short review, is the end of the show. Before we finish, we'll go through the usual. Nick, where can people find you on Twitter, my friend, if they want to follow you?
I am on Twitter at Nicholas Pages if people would like to follow me.
Fantastic. Johnny, do you have Twitter?
I do not know.
All right. I can remember, to be honest. Matt, where can people find you?
My Twitter is at MassLR28.
Yes, and you can follow me at Subsonics UK. That's SUBSONIX UK. You can follow us at Golden Goal TV. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Absolutely. Do like, share, comment, and subscribe, and click the bell to receive the notifications so you know when our next show is, which most likely will be on Friday, possibly doing a Champions League show, keep a lookout on our social media, because that is the first place you'll see it. Facebook and Twitter, and even in our WhatsApp group as well. You will know what's coming up. So follow the channel. We are back. We're putting out content when we can. So it'd be great to see you watching, commenting, and telling your friends. Spread the word for now. But we will see you all hopefully on Friday.